You hear that word stakeholder thrown around all the time, right? In business meetings, on the news, pretty much everywhere. But what does that word really mean? Well, it turns out that this one simple idea is at the heart of understanding how organizations work, who holds the power, and why they make the choices they do. So let's dive in and peel back the layers.
All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll nail down who exactly counts as a stakeholder. Then, we'll look at how companies can actually map out their influence. After that, we'll get into the big debate. Who should a company really be working for? And finally, we'll explore the whole spectrum of what corporate responsibility can look like. Okay, first things first. Before we can get into any of the juicy stuff, we need to be on the same page with the basic definition. Who or what is a stakeholder?
The go-to definition comes from R. Edward Freeman back in 1984, and the magic words here are affect and affected by. See, it's a two-way street. That's the key. A stakeholder isn't just someone who gets hit by the ripples a company makes. They're also someone who can throw a rock in the pond and make ripples of their own.
And this idea really snaps into focus when you look at a couple of examples. You've got your local corner shop, right? Its stakeholder list is pretty clear. The owner, the employees, customers, suppliers, maybe the immediate neighborhood. But then look at something like a major university. Whoa, that list just explodes. You have all the same groups, but now you've got to add the government, powerful alumni, research funders, academic rivals, and even this really interesting idea of future generations who are counting on the university to stick around.
So if you're running one of these big, complex organizations, you've got this huge web of people and groups, and they all want something different. How on earth do you manage all of that? You can't just listen to everyone at once, so you need a way to figure out who to pay attention to.
The first piece of the puzzle is power. And really, this just boils down to a simple question. How much can they do? A government regulator, for example, has a ton of power. They can literally shut you down. A single angry customer? Well, their power is a lot more limited, at least by themselves.
But power isn't everything. You also need the second ingredient, which is interest. This is all about a stakeholder's motivation. How much do they care? You could have a small community group with very little formal power, but their interest is sky high. So they're willing to protest and organize and pour all their energy into getting the company's attention.
And when you put those two things together, you get the magic formula for influence. A stakeholder's real clout isn't just about their power or their interest alone. It's the two multiplied together. To be a really significant player that a company has to listen to, you've got to have a lot of both.
This leads us to a really handy tool that strategists use called the Mendelow matrix. It maps power against interest and gives you a clear game plan. So in the bottom left, you have groups with low power and low interest. Strategy, minimal effort. Simple enough. Now, what if they have high interest but low power? Well, you need to keep them informed. Let them know what's going on. In the top left, you've got high power but low interest. These are people you need to keep satisfied because you don't want them to suddenly get interested and cause problems. And finally, in that top right corner, high power and high interest. These are your key players. You have to work with them closely all the time.
Okay, so we know who stakeholders are, and we've got a map to figure out who matters most. But this brings us to a much deeper, more fundamental question. Why should a business even care about any of this stuff? And this is where we get to the real philosophical heart of the matter. For a long time, this debate has been framed by two competing camps. On one side, you have the classic stockholder theory. It's a very clear-cut view. A company's only job is to make as much money as possible for its owners, the shareholders, period. But on the other side, you have stakeholder theory, which says, whoa, not so fast. This view sees a company as more of a corporate citizen. It exists in society, it uses public goods, it affects people's lives, so it has a responsibility to a much wider group than just its owners.
And even if a company does decide to care about stakeholders, there's another layer. Why are they doing it? The instrumental view is purely practical. It says we care about stakeholders because it's good for business. You know, happy employees work harder. Happy customers spend more. It's a means to an end, and that end is profit. The normative view, though, says it's a moral issue. You should care about your stakeholders because it's the right thing to do. It's an ethical duty, plain and simple, even if it doesn't help the bottom line.
But of course, the real world isn't so black and white, is it? It's not just profit only versus care for everyone. Most companies and leaders fall somewhere in between. So let's look at a framework that shows this isn't a simple choice, but a whole spectrum of beliefs about a company's role in the world.
This model lays out 7 distinct positions on social responsibility. It's a really great way to see the different shades of gray.
We start on one end with pristine capitalists and move all the way across through different viewpoints, ending up at the other extreme with deep ecologists.
Let's walk through this real quick. On one end, you have the pristine capitalists. Their view is shareholder money is all that matters. A step over, you have the expedients, who say, sure, social stuff is fine, as long as it makes us more money. Then you get to the social contract view, which argues that businesses need a sort of social license to operate from the community. After that, the focus really starts to shift. Social ecologists say companies have a basic duty not to trash the planet. Socialists go further, saying business should actively help fix inequality. Radical feminists argue for completely changing the corporate culture, swapping aggression for values like compassion. And at the furthest end of the spectrum, you have deep ecologists who believe that the planet's health comes first and human economic activity has no right to damage it.
So that leaves us with a final question for you. Think about the companies you interact with every day, the one you work for, the place you get your coffee, the phone in your pocket. Looking at this spectrum, where do their actual actions, not just their marketing, place them? Because this isn't just some academic exercise. It's a really powerful way to see the true values that are driving the organizations shaping our world. Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.